I'm Benjamin Anthony of the Miriam Institute. I'm born and raised in the UK, moved to and live in the State of Israel, had the high privilege of serving in the Israel Defense Forces, and I've lectured about my military experiences throughout the English-speaking world. This is my TV show, Israel Outside In. The place I'm standing at right now overlooks a country that will always have a place in my heart, Lebanon. It's a country into which I marched as a soldier, and it's a country from which I returned as a soldier once the guns fell silent following the Second Lebanon War of 2006. But as the Americans say about war, all gave some gave all. Here at Misgav Am, you can see monuments to those soldiers who fell during the battles of the Second Lebanon War. And ultimately, one of the peaks of our attachment to southern Lebanon surrounds our withdrawal from there in the year 2000 under the auspices of then Prime Minister Ehud Barak. And one of the top-level commanders and military operators is an individual named Brigadier General Chiko Tamir. He's a retired general of the Israel Defense Forces, and he was responsible not only for taking the fight to those who sought to harm Israel, but also for standing up one of Israel's most storied and elite commando units, the famed Egoz unit, designed to push forward in jungle warfare and counter the would-be terrorists in their own backyard. I'm going to go and interview Chiko, and he's going to talk to me about his time in the military. He's going to talk to me about leadership, about strategy, tactics, and everything in between. So it's time for me to go and get suited and booted, ready for my interview with a legendary commander from the Lebanon front, Brigadier General Chiko Tamir. Moshe, Chiko, Tamir, it's a real privilege to be here with you. Thank you very much for inviting me into your home, first of all. Let's start from the beginning. Tell us a little bit about yourself, because we're going to come to some of the operations in which you've served and led. We're going to come to some of the decisions that you made. We're going to come to your theories of leadership. Where were you born and where were you raised?
I was born in Haifa, in Israel. My father was also military, Navy. I have two sisters, and at the age of 14, I joined a military boarding school which prepares young Israelis for command. And for the next rest of my life, I think, I was in the military. Named after my grandfather, who died in battle in our independence, in war. My father was an officer. My uncle, my only brother to my mother, is also a high-ranking officer. He was a Brigadier General in the military, so sometimes I think I had no other option.
So when you do go into the Israel Defense Forces, you become an officer in the Golani Brigade, of the Golani Brigade. For those who are watching this, tell us what makes the Golani Brigade unique. And as someone who served in the IDF, I have a familiarity with the various brigades. There was always something within those who served in Golani that denoted a specific higher level, I would say, of pride. There's a deep, deep pride that unit, brigade, has when it thinks of itself. Where does that pride come from? Is it from its history? Is it from its training?
I think the pride comes from the fact that the soldiers in the brigade come from all different parts. Some of them are harder parts of the Israeli society. And for the first time in their life, they do something they take pride in. And they are part of something bigger. And it's an equation which is hard for someone from the outside to understand. But in this equation, I give everything I have to the division, and the division gives me back everything. I think something is special is built there upon this understanding.
Do you agree there is something unique? I don't see that across all of the brigades. Do you feel what I feel there?
Yes.
You do?
Yes.
You spent a lot of time inside Lebanon, and we're going to talk about that. But again, for a little bit of context, Menachem Begin launches what is termed a war of choice. As we look back at it, we can debate that. You may have a different view. Please let us know if you do. And the Israel Defense Forces remains in southern Lebanon all the way until it withdraws in the year 2000 under the premiership of then Prime Minister Ehud Barak. In that time frame, how many years did you spend operating inside Lebanon?
I joined the military as a soldier in '82. I was a brigade commander responsible for the eastern part of the security zone in 2000. So for 18 years, I served in South Lebanon, from plain soldier to a brigade commander, and through all the chains of command and staff positions. I did them all.
And so from 1982, you're in the IDF in the Golani Brigade, and then you're the brigade commander, as you mentioned, in 2000, 2001, I believe it was 2001 to 2003.
Circumstances are hard, and for the first time, Israel had to fight a guerrilla warfare against a guerrilla organization, very sophisticated one, and the challenge was big, and it was not easy. It was a difficult, but most of all, very long war. It is the longest war that Israel ever had. 18 years of fighting, same organization, different methods.
And that guerrilla force, that organization, of course, is Hezbollah. And they're still there in southern Lebanon today, as we meet here in 2022. Can you just describe Hezbollah's capabilities, please, and how they've evolved since you first had contact with them?
I think the war against Hezbollah was also even the first in the world of asymmetrical warfare. Israel was, and the IDF was built to fight armies and to defend Israel for an invasion from Arab militaries. So it was all heavy mechanized, looking at heavy maneuvers into the heart of Israel. Asymmetrical warfare, especially the wars against Hezbollah, was very different. For the first time, there were no tank formations that we had to fight. We never saw the targets. They disappeared before even they really appeared. It's a completely different game. On Hezbollah side, also they developed a lot, but you cannot talk about Hezbollah without understanding the context. Hezbollah is an Iranian proxy, even though it holds a lot of independence on its own. At the end, it's a proxy organization being funded, supported by Iran. It's also evolved not only by its own, but also by Iranian influence and help. But if we look at the 20 years, of course, we started this war. Hezbollah was really a terror organization led by Murnia and his group. And if you still have, older guys may remember, suicide bombers, against the Marine headquarters in Beirut, against the American embassy, the French embassy, against the Israeli headquarters. So the tactics that they used were really terror. It was a terror organization. This is what they knew very good how to do. And it took them time to understand that when Israel withdrew from Lebanon, from the north of Lebanon, the Beirut and the Bekaa area into the security zone, that now they are facing military outposts and conventional military, and that they need to change the tactics. Suicide bombers and terror attacks will not hold against strong military strongholds and so on. And this is how they started to develop. At a certain point, they even started to use army-like tactics, between a militia and a military. This was supported, of course, by Iran. The knowledge came from Iran. And they started trying to take over, especially the SLA, the South Lebanese Army, which was supported by Israel outposts, to take over. But then very quickly they tried to do it on the Israeli outpost, and they learned that trying to take an Israeli outpost or to take the Israeli head-to-head in a conventional way is not wise. They suffered a lot of casualties, and from there on they actually moved to guerrilla warfare. And during the next decade, they improved themselves in every way. And it was like a cycle of they are bringing new tactics, new weapons into the scene, and the Israeli military is doing the same, each side trying to be one step ahead of the other.
And you've been very involved, and we'll talk about this during our conversation, not only in the changes that the IDF has undertaken, but you've actually led some of those changes, pivotal changes in operations that people have read about in the media throughout the world. One of those early changes in mindset was the formation and the deployment and the use of the elite unit of the Golani Brigade, which is called the Egoz unit, which is specifically constructed to fight guerrilla warfare. Chiko, is it specifically constructed to fight guerrilla warfare in our northern terrain? I believe it was. Is that still the case?
Yes.
So tell us about your role in Egoz, and what was the purpose of Egoz, and why did that purpose become declared and acted upon so swiftly, and by the way, so effectively?
So I think, first of all, you asked about the Golani Brigade. So during the security zone, the campaign against Hezbollah in the security zone, the Golani Brigade is part of our Northern Command. And so there was a group of officers that I was amongst them, Erez Gerstein, Gabi Ashkenazi, Kaplinsky, a group of officers from the IDF who were the permanents, we call them. Officers that most of their service they did in South Lebanon. And so we were very experienced. And I think we all agreed the fighting against Hezbollah is not moving in the right direction. Meaning that the IDF more and more is investing in defending itself, security of the forces, sometimes overprotection. But force protection was I think the strongest effort. And we lacked the ability to take the fight to the other side. We lacked the initiative, and for that reason, we needed to build a unit that was out of the regular lines. And so we picked warfighters and especially officers from different units. Purpose was to build new tactics which will take the fight into the Hezbollah terrain and area, and not just fight and defend the area that we are doing. And it's not only a tactical change for a few soldiers. It was meant, and I think it did with a great success, to build these tactics and to find these ways, and also to spread them across the Israeli units, so that other units in the IDF will be able to change this basic situation.
I mean, that's an incredible story. We were talking offline before the interview began, and I was actually just reading a chapter about what you've just described, Chiko, is quite reminiscent of when Arik Sharon was told to go and form Unit 101 by then Ben-Gurion, I believe. And he went and he found Meir Haltzion and Chiko was in that unit and a whole bunch of others. And they specifically would take the fight. In that time, it was over to Jordan primarily, right? Not exclusively, but primarily. And here comes this movement up in the north, you're part of it, to build this unit and not only to change the facts on the ground, but also the ethos throughout the Israel Defense Forces. Do you think it worked?
I think it worked, and the Israeli military used this method of building a special unit, which thinks differently. Unconventional, you can call it special forces. We did the same in the first Intifada with Duvdevan. Mm-hmm. It's a unit that specializes in counter-terror in the West Bank. Knows how to work undercover, and they developed many ways of which many of the other IDF units are using today, but if you look at it really, they started there. It's not the only time that we did it, and it's correct that the 101st with the Arik Sharon was the first example for that. And Egoz was this example for the war against Hezbollah, and I think it worked very, very well, because the unit developed some independence in the way that it's thinking, and young officers were giving space to show initiative, to build new tactics, and we took more risks upon ourselves until we built it. It was a big success, and I think it influenced the whole situation in the campaign between Hezbollah and the IDF.
When I arrived here in your home, you kindly referred me to this book that you've written, and the rough translation of this book is An Undeclared War. It refers to your time in Lebanon, but also the first Lebanon war, if I can put it like that, generally, and our presence in Lebanon until we withdrew from there ultimately. And there's a story in here, not a story, it's written by your hand. There is a memoir within this book that talks about your role as commander of that elite unit, Egoz. And there was a particular incident which took place on the 12th of September, 1997. It was called Operation Wild View. That's my translation of the operation. I'd like you to tell us what happened there, because it's the first of two examples I want you to give to us, if you would, about leadership at the tactical level. We're going to go to other levels of leadership, but start with the tactical. Start with that operation called Operation Wild View, if you would.
I think as a background, at least my view of tactical leadership, especially tactical command in the military, you don't set the terms. On the tactical level, the terms are set by the situation, the war, the fighting, and usually it's hard circumstances. You don't know about them a lot, you don't understand, the chaos is there. Good tactical leaders, they take decisions according to the circumstances, and I think this is a good example. It was actually an operation quite regular. We were on a search and destroy mission. One of the companies of the unit was sent. Counter-guerrilla warfare is a lot about endurance, patience, inside the area that you are fighting. So we were always sending or going deep into the area, getting into the bush, into the mountains, very rocky area, and waiting, patrolling the area, looking for rocket launchers, and in that case, trying to enter a few concealed positions of the Hezbollah organization. It was the way that Hezbollah was working inside these areas. And actually nothing happened for about 72 hours, and just before the company was starting to get back, there was a very short-range encounter between one of the teams and a Hezbollah team. We were working in a way that the companies were spread, and there was we had to have one team have the back of the other team. So it was on different hills, and each team would have to look at the other team. This group of Hezbollah turned out to get between the teams, actually inside the trap. One team was chasing, the second team just had to turn over into the area that Hezbollah is running back. And actually, I think 3 or 4 of the members of that group were killed, the other were injured.
Of which group? Which
Hezbollah.
Of Hezbollah.
Yes, it was a group of the Hezbollah special forces that was penetrating that area with all the equipment. Very quickly, it turned very, very rough. Usually, the territorial Hezbollah group would shoot mortars, anti-tank missiles, anti-aircraft into the ground, all of this. But this time, it was really heavy. We saw that the companies being fired very heavily, and there were a lot of mortars and machine guns, all, especially the 23x4. It's a heavy machine gun that you use for ground to air. This time they used it against the force. So I thought something is wrong, and we had some information, and I think in a minute I took a decision. And I told them to take the bodies with them.
The bodies of these downed Hezbollah fighters.
Correct.
Now, just a moment. That's not an easy task right there, is it, at all? To start pulling bodies out of a battlefield.
When you are under fire in a high mountain area, very bushy, huge rocks, very difficult terrain, and you are under mortars and whatever you can think of, it's completely unusual. Usually we sneak out. But the background to my decision was that a few days earlier, there was an operation that really went bad for the Sheyetet 13, which is the
Israeli Navy commandos.
Yes, it's Israeli Navy commandos. There was a body missing from that operation. We were working a lot with the Navy commandos in Agos, in South Lebanon. We knew every one of them. We were also the rescue team for their operation, and I felt an obligation. In Israeli commandos, one of the moral commands, I would say, no one is left behind. And we left Ilya behind. And I took the decision because I knew at a certain point it will come to negotiation with Hezbollah over the bodies. And from the situation that I understood, I thought there was someone within that group, or high-ranking officer, or someone who was important to the organization. And I remember at that time that the company commander on the radio, he didn't want to tell me what kind of, what's in your head. He just told me on the radio, everything is all right, are you okay? I said, yes. Someone is looking now from up in the sky at us. The commander of the Israeli commandos, Navy commandos unit was a good friend of mine, and also most of the officers in Agos knew him. And I said, we have a commitment to fulfill. Pulling out the unit, the company out of that terrain took a long time. It was very hard, but I had to say nothing more. During that time, I had calls, orders, all sorts of to stop and to leave the bodies behind. Only when they got to the Israeli commander, I told them, okay, I know him, even if it's crazy. Let him do it, and he will explain later. If he hasn't got a good explanation, then we will explain to him. It really turned out that one of the bodies was very valuable to the organization. And
who was that body? There was one among those bodies that was a key body. And when you said a high-level operative, tell us who that was, please.
It was the son of Hassan Nasrallah, the leader of Hezbollah. He was killed in the exchange of fire. And of course, when we came to the negotiation to get Ilya back, it was of conclusive importance. These decisions are you will take it alone, no one to consult with, and they are quick. You don't have time to consider every aspect of your decision. And it's always influenced by the circumstances. You don't have a control over the situation. You need to take a decision, and sometimes the situation controls you more than you control the situation. Most of the time, it will be hard for you to convince people under you that the decision that you took, although these circumstances are hard, and you risk their lives, it's the right thing to do. This is a confidence that you need to build, and to whoever commands you, the level beyond you, you need to know to take the responsibility of this upon yourself on these decisions, because if they are wrong, it will be your responsibility. And if the whole system and the organization is built right, then commanders at the tactical level are given this opportunity to take these decisions. In this way, you can develop commanders that have initiative, that can take upon themselves decisions which are not led by orders that they got from higher levels, sometimes even against direct and clear orders, because they see the situation and they live the situation better than anyone else.
Be sure to tune in to the next episode of Israel Outside In for part 2 of my interview with Israel Defense Forces legendary commander, General Chiko Tamir. He'll be providing his rules for tactical, operational, and strategic leadership. And it's also during that show that he provides a chilling and prophetic warning about the military capabilities of the terror group Hamas, who he went on to battle back against inside the Gaza Strip during Operation Swords of Iron, Israel's war against Hamas.
What's happening in Gaza is that Hamas is building an army.
If you're interested in investing in the next generation of Israeli and American leadership for the benefit of both countries and the relationship between the two, then please take the time to learn about and to invest in the Miriam Institute annual Israel Strategy and Policy Tour, or ISAP, as we like to call it.
First off, I never thought I would be in Israel. When I saw that this was an opportunity, I put my name.
We really got to see the entire country in 10 days, experience the culture.
The Jewish culture was really impressive for me.
Try to get people to love each other and not to hate each other.
Really impressed by all of the different types of speakers we were able to hear.
It's for cadets, future and current officers of the United States Armed Forces, including the Army, Navy, Air Force and Marine Corps. The ISAP tour brings the best and the brightest active and incoming officers to Poland for a 3-day tour of the Polish death camps, followed by a 12-day, once-in-a-lifetime tour of the State of Israel that crisscrosses the Jewish state. 100% of the participants will go on to serve in positions of leadership within the military and beyond. The ISAP tour is your way to invest in the leaders of today and tomorrow, now.
So happy that I was selected and I was able to come. Thank you so much for the opportunity and everything you guys have done here. It's really awesome.
For the sake of the US-Israel relationship, please visit the website today at www.miriaminstitute.org/ISAP.